Welcome to our panel on the world of cybersecurity and its importance in the future. I am Dr. Zahira Jordan. I am an associate professor at the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico who teaches cybersecurity amongst other computer-related topics. This panel has invited two wonderful panelists who I will introduce them in a moment. I'm going to start by saying that this panel, as you must have read, is about cybersecurity, which is a very important aspect of business, and it protects all categories of data from theft and damage. This includes sensitive data, personally identifiable information, protected health information, personal information, intellectual property data, and governmental and industry information systems. With me, I have today Dr. Dilma da Silva and Dr. Ada Gavrilovska. Dr. da Silva is a professor and holder of the Ford Design Professorship at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Texas A&M University. She is currently interim director of the Texas A&M Cybersecurity Center. Her previous roles include department head and associate dean. Her primary research interests are distributed systems, operating systems, and computer science education. She currently has projects on cybersecurity, data sciences, and autonomous vehicles. Before joining Texas A&M, she worked at Qualcomm Research, IBM Research, and the University of Sao Paulo. Dilma is an ACM Distinguished Scientist, a member of the board of CRAW, Computer Research Association's Committee on the Status of Women in Computer Research, and a co-founder of the Latinas in Computing Group. She served as an officer at ACM SIGOPS from 2011 to 2015 and chaired the ACM Senior Award Committee in 2015. She is an associate editor of several journals and is on the steering committee of many conferences. She has chaired more than 35 conferences, workshops, and participated in more than 100 program committees. Recent leadership roles include program co-chair for IEEE ICDS 21, ACM Middleware 20, Supercomputing 19, and IPDPS 19. She has published more than 80 technical papers and filed 15 patents. Dilma received her doctoral degree in computer science from Georgia Tech and her bachelor's and master's from University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. She's passionate about enabling the next generation of talent and curious about how computing will continue to impact the world. When not working, she enjoys knitting while listening to an audiobook. She codes for fun. Welcome, Dr. Da Silva. Thank you for being here today. And now I'm going to introduce Dr. Ada Gavrilovska. She's an associate professor in the School of Computer Science at Georgia Tech. Her research is focused on designing systems for emerging technologies, such as in response to new hardware, applications, and use cases. Her past research has considered opportunities and challenges resulting from programmable network processors, high-performance interconnects, multi-cores, virtualization, and cloud computing. Her recent research is driven by two major trends rooted in the exponential growth in demand for data and for ever faster insights of such data, the proliferation of new memory system designs, and the shift to edge computing. Gavrilovska's research is supported by the NSF, the Department of Energy, the SRC DARPA JUMP program, and by multiple industry awards. She has served as a program and general chair for Usenix at ATC 20, HOT 17, VEE 15, the workshop on diversity and systems research, and as an associate editor for the IEEE Transactions on Cloud Computing work. Welcome, Dr. Gavrilovska. Thank you so much for being here. And after that introduction, I just think it's good to just go right along to the questions about cybersecurity, because our audience is going to be very interested in hearing from you two, who are such wonderful professionals and academicians and researchers. So our first question for you is, what is the importance of cybersecurity?
And who you want us to take first? I can go. Ada, you want to go first?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Emma. Go ahead.
go ahead, Dr. De Silva.
So what has been happening in our society is that more and more of everything that we do for our personal life, for work, is centered around computer systems. So the level of automation of processes and services has enabled us to really push things further. For many of the women here who are listening to this, and they are innovators and doing business, they are often regardless of the area, they are using some sort of computational infrastructure to support and advance their business, their tasks. With all this infrastructure behind everything that we do, what has happened is that our society really now needs the computational systems as we need water, as we need, energy, transportation, and everything. So it becomes this, very basic commodity that things go wrong, we can't eat, we can't travel, we cannot do anything. And things probably became even more clear now that with the pandemic, we all had to move everything that we do to be facilitated by technology. So that has now this network of computers supporting everything we do and exposing one more element for failure. So cybersecurity now matters more than ever, because if the computational systems can be brought down, that really breaks all processes behind our society. So it just became so inherent to everything we do. And the other aspect that also makes cybersecurity important is that the global level. Something that may impact, let's say, transportation systems in South America, or a flood that may happen in Germany. All those things, they impact a lot of people, but has this global, this localized impact. With computers, if someone brings down a data center in South America, then users in Central America, users in many other parts of the world will be impacted. And we all saw that very recently when meat packing, a company that produces meat, had data centers in Colorado and Australia that were attacked, and the whole thing fell down for meat production, with a lot of fear for high prices across the world. And let's not forget that we had the people who work on those companies. I think it was 30,000 people who could not work that day and didn't have a paycheck. So it's really not only impacting all of us, and I'm also concerned that impacts the people that are the people that are more vulnerable in society in general. They are the ones also that may suffer dire consequences of anything that goes wrong. So what do you think, Ada?
Yeah, so I will add to that. So it's we're clearly much more depending on computational infrastructure for all sorts of aspects of our life. But then there is another aspect in of these kinds of services that we depend on. There is automation. There is increasing level of automation. So the kinds of attacks, the kinds of vulnerabilities that this creates aren't just a matter of bringing servers down or stealing secrets, but actually changing the algorithms, impacting the algorithms that drive these services, right? And that can be just as disruptive, if not even more dangerous in some cases. And so these are new types of vulnerabilities and new types of threats. And so we're sort of continuously in this race of exposing ourselves more and then finding new solutions how to address these new complexities.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your answers. I would sum it up or wrap it up by saying that technology is everywhere, like Dr. Silva and Dr. Gavrilovska say, and the vulnerabilities are therefore everywhere, and the attacks change and evolve and grow every day. So we must be in the know in terms of how to protect our assets, our systems, our data, and all those things. Thank you so much, Dr. Da Silva and Dr. Gavrilovska. And now let's move on to the second question. What are the challenges to compliance with global data privacy regulations? What do you think, Dr. Gavrilovska?
Now, let me try to take this first. So Dilma pointed out an example of a factory that had infrastructure in Colorado and in Australia. And so I think that one of the biggest root causes has to do with data localization, with data sovereignty laws that differ in many different ways across many different countries, right? So kind of the geopolitical boundaries are not aligned necessarily with how our services are executed, where our data is stored. And I think that introduces a significant level of complexity, raises questions as to what can be performed with data in different countries, how to handle that, and at the same time provide both the transparency that end users require and also kind of seamless operation at global scales. And there's certain things that are maybe simple solutions. So when I travel, there are several local news stations in Atlanta that I cannot access when I'm in Greece. But when I go and so I was recently on the beach there, couldn't access them. Then I traveled to my family in Macedonia, and they were all available. And so there's certain things that we can obviously solve that have to do with some of these privacy laws. But there are other, even at a finer scale, more complex scenarios where we really need to think about not just how to protect data, but how to meet the regulations that are present where end users are, where data is stored, where infrastructure is present, and so forth. So I think that that continues to be something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Dr. Da Silva?
I think we may have even to reconsider how we as consumers think about services, informational services. So there's this tension from anyone serving me, a search engine, a social network, everyone serving me, selling me tickets for travel, whatever it is. There is this tension that if they know me better, they can provide me better services. So they would like to really know a lot about my traveling. They would like to know, when I'm doing on a search engine, which countries I'm curious about. They really could offer me better services in prices, pointing me out to, opportunities if they know me better. On the other hand, that opens the door for possibly companies knowing too much about me, about what I'm doing. And this line is very hard to navigate. So recently, there's someone in my family with new health conditions, kind of serious. So I was on a search engine learning a lot about it. It took only 1 week for my physical mailbox at my home to be full of the requests for donations for that disease, right? So if you think about it, this means that my behavior was being observed, made aware to other organizations that wanted to serve me better by giving me the opportunity to donate money to their cause. But on the other hand, one could say it could be the books that I got in the library, because it happened that I went to the local library and I got a lot of books about that. Could that be also that my profile about the books that I read is now being made available for other services, right? So this is a very benign example, really, all nonprofits, all about knowledge. But many of us may have been annoyed that when you buy, let's say, something that you only buy once every 4 years, like new boots, if you don't live in a winter place, like my case, right? You pay every 5 years, but once you finally buy one, then you'll be all the time being presented for more opportunities to buy. So in some way, you have this business model revolving the economy of attention to get my attention as a consumer, and that using that. So for women here, there are entrepreneurs that and they are developing new business. Of course, they need to gather all the data, but can't forget to navigate that, that some of the data may be private. You have to protect, and then as Ada was telling us, this protection can be complicated, in particular if you have different jurisdictions in different countries or different states, depending on how the law is organized. So that is one change. It's related to the business model, right? So that's the thing. For many of us, we got email for free. So, and the consequence of email for free is that often a company can tell me about the gate change in the airport even before the airline told me, right? And they know I'm there because they saw my ticket coming. That's it. Yeah. So yeah. Anything you want to add, Ada?
Yeah, I mean, from a consumer perspective, I think, and kind of, I think that has implication on technologies, thinking about new features. I certainly would appreciate the sort of the option to specify my level of privacy. I know that that's a, sort of very fuzzy metrics go into what that means, right? I mean, there's sort of the all or nothing, but there's probably many, many more flavors in between that would be great if they can be specified. I think from a technology perspective, the challenges come from kind of how do you enforce all of that? How do you combine that enforcement with, any regulatory additional specifications? So, I mean, the fact that I will say that I want something disclosed or not, in some countries may have strong implications on the sort of service provider, that they have to grant that request, whereas somewhere else maybe it's not as strict. And then it's both the enforcement part, and purely from a technical perspective, the combination with any regulatory requirements, and then comes the compliance, right? So can you actually certify, verify to what extent are you respecting these sort of requirements, whether they're personal, consumer-driven, or regulatory specifications?
And this can be expensive, right? So that is really
yes.
hard. That's really hard for a small company. So that is the concern. But on the other hand, the small companies, they have to at least making sure that they understand what kind of data they're storing that could be related to privacy. So they have to protect it. So it's a complex problem.
It is, and I totally agree with you, Dr. Da Silva, in terms of the balance that you're talking about. As an entrepreneur myself, it is a challenge because you want to gather as much data and be of service to your customer so that your customer likes you and acquires the services or products from you, right? But then again, you have to consider as an entrepreneur that you want your customer, your client, your user to be happy too. So you don't want to disrupt their privacy too much. And then on the other side, you have to comply with the laws that are different in different jurisdictions and so on and so forth. So it's a very hard balance to keep. Moving on to the next question, and I would like to introduce it by talking about a little bit about the trends in technology, right? The evolution of technology is very quick, and as time passes by, in the last few years, we've seen an explosion of what it's been come to known as the IoT, the Internet of Things, right? So there's very many other technologies and emerging technologies that we would want to talk about, but that impacts most users. So the question for you is, what emerging technologies do you think will be most significant? And I'll take Dr. Da Silva first.
Yeah, so you already mentioned Internet of Things, and I would still pay attention to it first, in the sense that the applications now that we're all depending on start to interact with the cyber physical aspects, the physical aspects, so we can like the cyber physical applications, and therefore much more intertwined in everything we do. The challenge is again maybe coming from the business model for those small devices, adding anything can really increase the price. So we understand why the companies who are doing it will keep it in terms of computational power and in memory or whatever, very, very basic. We understand why also it's very hard for them to be investing in making it bug-free. So with all of that, we are now having all these additional layers of software, and we are increasing the surface of attack for all the for whoever is trying to break into systems. You just have now these small doors everywhere in the system that can really be harder to secure, when your door before was this router that you bought from a very good vendor, and you have network administrators that you paid a salary to manage. So this is already, as you know, a problem. Now, if it is the devices, in my home and the devices across companies, that becomes hard. So the Internet of Things is an opportunity and a challenge for cybersecurity.
Dr. Gavrilovska?
So I think that there is an accompanying technology that goes really hand in hand with the Internet of Things, and that's edge computing. Right? So these many different little devices, we don't connect them necessarily straight to data centers. Whether it's a gateway that's localized, or whether it's a access point that's part of the cellular network, there is another tier of infrastructure that intercepts those connections, whatever the connectivity of those endpoints is. And fortunately, the computational elements that form that infrastructure are greatly turning to be general purpose compute elements. So you would find x86 CPUs or ARM CPUs. They're no longer these sort of custom boxes that are purpose built just to know how to move bits from one port to another, but you can deploy a regular operating system, you can launch VMs, you can launch all sorts of services. And so this tier, this edge of the, this now is becoming the sort of the edge of the data center, the edge of the service infrastructure. This creates opportunities to provide a first line of defense for that increased attack service that Dilma pointed to. And we need to figure out how to take advantage of it so as to kind of both be able to realize the opportunities of this IoT tier, but kind of also manage it without increasing cost in ways that maybe will become prohibitive, right? So I think that there are a lot of opportunities there to kind of hand in hand think not just about kind of the at a high level what the applications are and kind of what the device capabilities are, but end to end, what are all these services that need to come into play to make sure that that's a robust infrastructure from all sorts of, not just kind of from sort of cybersecurity attacks, but also reliability, other types of issues.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
There are probably other things in terms of.
I thought about artificial intelligence and its intersection with cybersecurity, because I'm working with students who are working on research projects on that topic, and how it impacts users, and how it's been found that artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms tend to be racist or somewhat discriminatory because of the data that feeds them, right?
So, right, yeah. And data-driven discovery, like machine learning and things like that, the other challenge is that they're really good on learning about situations for which there are plenty of data. And when you talk about cybersecurity, if you think about the information, the packages going on, most of them are benign. Most of them are benign. The fraction that are not, it's really very hard for them to build models. And then what you end up when the model is not good, it's a lot of false alarms. So no one wants to have in your home this alarm system that is, all the time telling you, oh, something wrong. Oh, no, never mind. Something wrong, never mind. And that's the challenge. But I do think you're right that the area is advancing a lot. And it may be that researchers working in machine learning or all other AI techniques specialized for cybersecurity that is really advanced. It took a while for algorithms to be really good to identify cats and dogs and animals, and it happened when they had, all this data. So it may be true that researchers and more availability with that would fix. And I think the other thing we could just bring up to keep people in mind is the 5G networking or 6G. The thing that the network will continue to evolve, and that brings a lot of opportunities for new applications and things like that. But then all those applications come with privacy, integrity, confidentiality requirements that may be harder to satisfy. So we all have, lots of problems to solve for a long time.
The one thing that I'm kind of hopeful about one role that AI can play when it comes to cybersecurity is some additional to provide some additional assistance with enforcement, with policy configuration, some of these things that it's not that we don't, sort of at a technical level that we cannot secure from certain types of attacks. It's just that I think that there is an element of just failure in process or under specification in process because things are just so complicated that we just end up not doing it. And so there is a potential that it can be kind of a helpful element of a toolbox of how to deploy, configure, and manage secure systems. So that could be one hopeful sign.
Definitely. And that, I think it's a good segue into our next question, which deals with education. And do you think the skills shortage will or can be solved? There's a shortage of people and people who are educated in this field. And how can education help to train talent from all over the world?
So we are both in academia, so we have to be optimistic on that, or all three of us are, right? So we have to be very optimistic on that question. I'm at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech really caught a lot of attention globally with its online master's degree programs. It initially launched a master's degree in computer science, and that was followed with 2 other programs in analytics and in cybersecurity. All the 3 programs are growing at fantastic rate, and they draw. So I teach in the Masters of Computer Science. I teach Introduction to Operating System. I don't teach one of the cybersecurity classes, but at the start of each semester, I have students that put a pin on the map where they're coming from. And with the exception of Antarctica, I regularly have students from the entire world. And it's humbling and it's just such an amazing feeling to understand that kind of the reach that you have. These students take a Georgia Tech degree. What I have noticed at least, is that when they're looking for employment, when they're looking for interviews, at least those students that are applying for jobs in the US, there really isn't a difference between the kinds of jobs that the students in the online program receive versus the students that are coming in our on-campus program. And it's a mechanism to actually provide training, advanced training. So these are master's degree students that are graduating with a master's degree from a top tier university. And there is a way to offer education across the globe, many different countries, regardless of kind of background, at a fraction of the cost of what an on-campus degree would cost. Now, it's still a big commitment, right? It is a multi-year commitment to come out with a master's degree. There's a certain number of credits that you still have to take regardless of the program. But there are smaller types of certificates that not just Georgia Tech, also many other universities offer these kinds of programs that I think that kind of the combination of being a sought after skill and also being available as part of curricular offerings across the world is creating a path for this to basically be disseminated across a much broader audience than traditional education. So I'm optimistic that there is a path to provide the training.
No, and I'm a fan of Georgia Tech's program. I was walking at a very large conference, the Women in Computing Grace Hopper, which is 20,000 people conference. I was walking around with Ada and talking and seeing how many people were just pointing to her, right? So this is just like one asked for a selfie, but this is just the idea of this democratization of access to information, because Georgia Tech took the step of deciding to do it at a price that I do understand globally is super expensive. But for American standards, by coming from a top school, it was very priced on the low end. And I think that pushed all other schools to try to see how we can teach more people. The hard part, of course, is who gets admission to such program. And Georgia Tech cannot educate the world. They cannot solve the problem, right? So what happens is that all of us is still in academia are trying to see how we can get more people into degrees that given them enough of science, technology, engineering, and math in order to be applying to one of those programs like Georgia Tech. Because we do know that at that program, the computing classes, they have depth. And therefore, if someone has a degree in liberal arts or maybe in biology, it'll be really hard. So there's also this idea of getting this bridge, and there are many people in many universities working on that bridge. But more importantly, the bridge, in my opinion, is that there is a space for cybersecurity professionals that they know computing, but not with the passion that, let's say, Ada and I have for operating systems. We think everyone in the world, we can teach anyone operating systems. The two of us, we could get like, there is not a person, if you understand like basic math, like really like fourth grade math, Ada and I can teach you operating systems. But the truth is that maybe that's not needed for all cybersecurity jobs. And I think we need to, and I think our society will start to have more of those degrees that would be able to get people from other majors into understanding information processing enough to be able to work in many of the jobs that are now vacant in cybersecurity without being able to, let's say, be at the cybersecurity team of a top technology company. They're really different skills that we need. So I do hope that more people from all kinds of measures, sociology, all kinds of majors would then be interested in going through those bridge programs and then going to masters like Georgia Tech, which is really technical, and others that would be technical, but maybe focusing more on a higher level, or we call the higher level on the stack, not having to have that understanding of what the bits are being transformed as they're passing through the computer. Because Georgia Tech has some pieces of their classes online. I have saw many when I'm preparing my classes, and I looked at their videos to also give to my students, and they do have a lot of depth, and we need to see what is the difference. But I'm really very optimistic as Ada. I think it is great because the jobs are there. They're high-paying jobs, like globally, right? And just globally. I'm not saying everyone is making what a top, company will pay, but globally compared to other professions, I think they're compensated fairly, and we hope to be attracted. Challenge is right now, a common challenge to science, technology, engineering, and math, is that you need to get more people interested in it. And if you don't have a lot of women and you don't have a lot of people from underrepresented populations in engineering working there, then you're working with a smaller base, right? I'm in Texas, and in Texas, you look at high schools, it's at least 50% Hispanic. When you look at all the engineering degrees, we are better than the nation. We're around 20%. Sounds really amazing if you are not in Texas. But 20% means we're still missing all these people that could be going to degrees on that way. So there's a lot, all good news. There's all this wonderful talent. And I'm thinking, of course, I didn't talk globally as you asked yet. Sarah, I was talking about, globally, like global population in one country. But that applies to, all countries. Our understanding is many countries, not all, women still don't go after this kind of careers as often as we would like.
So the cybersecurity master's program recently published a little bit more about their demographics, and it is, and also Georgia Tech recently formed a school of cybersecurity that actually spans multiple colleges: the College of Computing, the College of Engineering, the Ivan Allen College, where the public policy school is.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the demographics, actually they have, because I think because of these kind of not traditional computer science and computer engineering aspects of the program, they have a larger percentage of women. They may be coming from policy. We do want the girls to take operating systems as well, but if the option was to just get them, doesn't matter. There are, all of these are very important aspects, and there is a need for jobs or job opportunities. And great career opportunities, not just kind of an immediate job. So both the sort of the policy aspects and these at the intersection of cybersecurity and services, right? Grids, smart grids, and so forth. I think there are designated courses that address some of these skills that are needed for these aspects of cybersecurity.
Thank you so much. I myself, I'm at a lot smaller institution who is almost completely Hispanic, the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico. And we have been designated as a center of academic excellence in education and cybersecurity by Homeland Security, and I believe it's the Department of Defense. It's a designation that they give out when they come and check on the program to make sure that it's, it teaches cybersecurity and it teaches it right. I teach the cybersecurity courses, at least 3 of them that we offer as part of the undergraduate degrees in computer engineering and computer science, and even electrical engineers take those courses at the Polytechnic. We have also certifications and graduate degrees in the field, and we graduate, I believe we're in the top tier in graduating Hispanic engineers for the United States. Many of my students who specialize in cybersecurity at the undergrad level end up being hired by the federal government and leaving Puerto Rico as soon as they graduate, sadly. But I think I myself as an educator see their passion for it and their interest in becoming, quote unquote, hackers. So I don't think that I would like to see a lot more women, and I'm working towards that. A lot of more females in our field, so that they know that they can be part of this protecting our data, our assets, our systems, and so on and so forth. We have a few minutes to finish, and our last question, and your closing, please. At this time, I would like to request. The question is: will humans be relevant in the future of cybersecurity?
Human-centric cybersecurity is the only path, the only feasible path to actually address the problem. So we talked a lot about the more technical aspects, but there is social engineering is one component that is important in all the existing, most, not all, but most existing attacks that we have. You have the human link to help get malicious things into the system. And also because we are not going, as much as we automate, we don't remove, in most cases, it's not advisable to remove humans entirely out of the process. So we have to be able to support well humans in the interaction. So it's still kind of a joke that most attacks is still because, password is password, even, in sophisticated attacks. But on the other hand, I do not think we can blame users, right, that now have 100 different accounts to be able to have schemes for passwords that will work well. And even though if they said, okay, let's use a password manager, then they will go and say, oh, password manager are also not safe. So there is this idea of really bringing the human at the central part and helping all of us to do our part. As part of what I already mentioned was AI helping to enforce the right configuration of the system. They also can help me to do better when I'm interacting with the systems and all users, in particular, like if you think about smartphones that all of us use. I think there is a lot of space for that there in humans. And I think we also mentioned already the relation to law and other fields. And I will now connect with my final words, which is that for everyone that is in business and innovation and creating new opportunities, risk assessment is part of their business plan. And risk assessment right now really needs to include what are your exposure if you can't have your computing systems, what happens, if there is a ransomware attack, one of those attacks that make your data not available to you anymore. So this should be part of all business plan, and people here who teach on business schools are probably already training the new students into that way of thinking. But it is really important that risk assessment in business, in engineering, in law, accounting, all now takes into consideration what if we don't have access to our own data, our own processes that are key to serving our customers. So that's my view on the human in cybersecurity.
Yes, those are 100% valid points, Delma. I agree with that. I mean, I think that one really dangerous role that humans perhaps have played so far has been the fact that this reactive approach to cybersecurity. So when it happens, okay, then let's look at what is it that we can do. So I think that it's becoming critical. There have been some of these massive attacks that have happened over the last year that have made that very apparent that we can't afford to operate in that mode. I think that I would point out that so we are technologies, right? We are in kind of technical fields and professional settings. There are large groups of demographics that are very technology dependent, but maybe very naive about the implications of their actions. And so as we are, I think that that's an underserved market essentially that needs to be better trained, better educated. On one side are children, right? I don't think that these children will ever remember a single phone number because they just won't have to, right? So or a birthday or anything like that. But finding ways in the technology offerings that are being presented to them to bring in some aspect of privacy, security training, better savviness will be important. So I call on people that think to how to tap into that market to take ownership of some of that responsibility. There is another part of the population, aging population, that all of a sudden doesn't matter that maybe this person had 3 degrees and was fantastically competent, all of a sudden become very naive about the things that they do. And so I think that it's our responsibility to find ways how to help those tiers of population how to better use access technology and not to create additional problems, right?
Well, I think that we've come to a close right on time. Thank you so much, Dr. Da Silva and Dr. Gabrilovska, for your wonderful expositions during about your answers to our questions. I hope that this has been a good opportunity for you to learn about cybersecurity and keep looking into it because it's really important. With that, this is Dr. Zayera Jordan. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.